So hello everybody, welcome to Madness Central, my YouTube channel. This is my daughter Aisa, as you all know, her mother's keeper, not the other way around. Anyway, so thank you, Great Mother, thank you, Spirit, for allowing us another day to breathe in and breathe out, to be in communion with you and with our Mother Earth, with Grandmother Moon shining so bright in all of her glory and her fullness, Strawberry Moon. We are so grateful. We're grateful for all the gifts that you share with us constantly and the opportunity to vibrate higher, to live a more meaningful and more perfect life, encompassing all of your creation, that the realization that we don't stand on anything else, that everything is equal in your eyes. You created everything, and it's not for anybody to destroy anything that you've created. Whatever shifts that happen, whatever changes that are made by Mother Earth for herself, she's taking care of business. Get out the way. Okay. So, Aisa.
Yes.
As the disclaimers go, this is for entertainment purposes only, except there's truth to these things. When people are pulling cards and speaking on them, especially in my experience of them, and I was told years ago by another seer that they allow me to have these cards and different things because they consider them my toys and they know they amuse me. So, but to know that I don't need them, they're just props. But I know that people like to see these cards and they like to see what, energy you're pulling from them. But it's coming from Spirit. It's coming from my guides, and thank you, guides. And thank you, Aisa's guides, for being with us. So today, what we're going to talk about is, we got a call from a young man named Isaiah earlier, and he asked me a whole bunch of questions, and he was in a very thoughtful place. And I've been getting these calls from people on a regular basis from overseas and everything, where people are like, help, what's going on? Tell me about this. What are you getting about this and that and the other? I've been doing this since I was a child, really. And when I think back about how my mother used to laugh, and she said I used to have a ragtag group of kids that followed me around and pretty much did whatever I told them to, which wasn't always the greatest thing.
The little rascals.
The little rascals, yeah. And I grew up in a very multicultural, multi-ethnic neighborhood for maybe the first 12 years of my life, and then people started to branch out and move away from the neighborhood, and the neighborhood changed. And my grandmother lived 8 blocks from us, so I could walk to her house anytime and go hang out over there, which was an awesome thing. And then I had another aunt that lived 2 doors from her, and and kids that I grew up with. And so we were all in a very tight-knit, in some ways, community. We weren't divided by racial lines in my mind until I started to get older, and then I started to see the reality of things and the influences that people's families had on them. And I can remember growing up and having Chinese and Japanese kids squaring off against each other. And we were always puzzled, and why? Because I didn't know the historical background of some of the things that went on between those two countries. And then we had, just a myriad of things. And I remember learning as I was growing, there were certain things that you knew in being schooled by your friends of how you talked to, how you showed respect to the elders. A lot of people had grandmothers that lived and grandfathers that lived with them. As I was growing, there was a Japanese family across the street from us, and I used to go over there. The father owned a little grocery store, like mom and pop kind of store, and he would watch these Japanese movies, and I guess they were soap operas or whatever. I just remembered that I was fascinated, so I would just go, and he'd sit in his chair and I'd sit on the floor next to him and watch all these things. And my sister still cracks up because there are certain dances and certain songs that I still remember. And like, sing that so I can tape it. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. But, but knowing that through a cultural screen of how to respect those grandparents and the parents in that house, and learning certain Japanese phrases and things, and most importantly, banyo, because you had to go to the bathroom sometimes. But you also, of course, knew how to greet, how to say please, how to say thank you, how to, just be respectful. Same thing with my friends that were Mexican. And then and it was interesting there too, because this whole light skin, dark skin thing, as I reflect now as an adult, there was this whole thing that some of these kids would talk about. Well, I'm not Mexican. My people are from Spain or somewhere, and they were lighter complected than some of the reddish brown skin other kids that their families were from Mexico. And so in some of these kids' minds, there was a clear hierarchy and thing that was going on that I guess because I was a little cuckoo kid anyway, but I was totally almost oblivious to. But certain hurtful things that happened, I of course saw. And we had, white folks in our community, and people that lived there were teachers, some were doctors, people mostly were either, owned stores or were professionals or whatever. And I didn't, there was a policeman, and just, a whole mixture. Was not quite Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, but, in my little blissful childhood space land that I lived in, because I'm, living in this world and the other world of seeing fairies, talking to the, butterflies and healing things and all of that. And so it was what rooted me, and I guess what grew my idea of how things grew in synchronicity and how these overlapping things. And my mother was a great influence in that, because my mother was very multicultural. And she had friends of, all different backgrounds and she taught us to be in sync with everybody. And even, during my high school years at UCLA, she would call there and say, who's stuck there when everybody went home for a break during holidays. And she said, get me a bus, get those kids from all over the world, Nepal, this place and that place, get them on the bus and bring them out to the San Fernando Valley where we had moved out of LA proper, and bring them to our house, and they're going to spend the day with us and have dinner and all of that. And then we had to invite all our friends over who were like, and, meet these kids and interact with them and give them some place to be away from home and be with a family. And so, growing up with a mother, Peggy Bowden Albert, who was a Harris, she was a Spitfire, I'll tell you. She was down there. She grew up in Philly. She went down to Tuskegee, where she met my father, who was a Tuskegee Airman. And, she said she would get on the bus and she would dare anybody to tell her that she had to sit in the back of the bus. And one of my friends said, well, your mother was very light complected and had green eyes and all of that, so they may not have even known that she wasn't white. And I told my mother that. She was so pissed off. She said, not going to steal her thunder. But she would throw down. She was a Scorpio, and she taught us, stand your ground. Don't let anybody, take advantage of you. My sister Sandy, my oldest sister, came home one day from junior high, and her home ec teacher, I found the letter from the Board of Education apologizing to my mother for this thing that went down. And Sandy came home and all upset, and she said, my teacher, Mrs. Crone, had the nerve to sit there, and there was a predominantly black, Mexican, Asian school. And she came in there with herself and said to the girls, well, today I'm going to teach you how to use deodorant. And she said, because, some of you, you need to wear deodorant and all of that. And so you're getting, she said, but I myself, as this little white woman or whatever, she said, I don't usually have to use it, but maybe once a week or something like that. So my sister came home very upset. Her friends all went home upset to their mothers too, and my mother beat them to it. She got in her car immediately, and we all jumped in the back seat knowing something was going down. And she went there and went to the woman's classroom, and when she saw my mother, she locked the classroom doors, and my mother's banging on the window saying, "Open the door, I want to talk to you." Then out comes the vice principal and says, "Mrs. Bowden, can you just come to the office and we can talk about this?" And she said, "Talk about what?" And he said, you need to calm down and let's go to my office and talk about this, yada, yada. And my mother's like, there's nothing to talk about except why this woman is in this classroom and why she feels that it's okay for her to tell this to these kids. She said, and they brought the woman in because, now she had two white males standing there for her. Mm-hmm. And my mother looked at her and she said, "So you only use deodorant once a week? I guess you only bathe once a week too. Is that right?" She's like, "How dare you?" She said, "I will be up here tomorrow morning in the classroom with you while you apologize to each one of those young girls and apologize for what you said, and you better never say anything like that again." Well, it went all the way to she wrote a letter, it went to the Board of Education, they sent back a letter apologizing. So, we saw firsthand, you don't let people get away with that kind of stuff, that kind of behavior, and think that it's okay. And so I taught that, to my children. My children will rise up in a minute too and not allow people to speak that way. And even my granddaughter, my daughter, who's named after me, Rabia, she is a firebrand, and so is Khadija. They all are just really. Like her grandmother. She is just like her grandmother. Oh my God! And she cannot stand any injustice of any kind. She will go to war immediately if you say the wrong thing, and she don't care whose kid it is or what the circumstances is. She will not watch children and women and anybody being oppressed without speaking out. So my granddaughter Layla, who's born on my birthday, yay, and she and I went to the store, and we were at the delicatessen department, and this man was reaming this woman out, had her in tears. He's screaming and hollering at her about whatever. And so we're watching this other woman who was behind the counter at the deli, and she just looked, so sad and so upset. And then another man was in the back, and he just stood there and watched this woman getting berated and reamed and screamed at. And then the guy moves her aside into his office where he continued this tirade. And the guy comes out and says, "Oh, so-and-so's on a tear, better be careful." And my granddaughter's looking at me, and I'm looking at her like, what? So we got our stuff, paid for it, went to the manager and said, "You better go back there and do something about this, because under no circumstance is this okay, that this man is screaming and hollering at this woman. I don't care. If she made a mistake, you pull her aside and you calmly say, this is what you did wrong. This is, the correct way to do something. But to stand there and scream at her, and she's in tears." And I said, and then, I'm thinking, and you're touching the food, and we're ingesting all this anger and this angst and tears and all that. And I'm just like, and my granddaughter's standing there looking at me, and she's saying to the manager as well, "Yeah, this is not cool at all." And she's like, "And you better be glad my mother wasn't here, because she would have stood behind the counter. She would have went back in that room and let him have it." So, yeah. And we said, and one of the other employees was looking on, watching, and she was just nodding her head because she knew who it was, and it wasn't a one-time thing. So, this is part of our family history of, no, we don't let things slide. No, it's not going to go down that way. There are times that I didn't step up, that I pray over constantly and try to change and ask for forgiveness of these spirits and energy. And I try never to be in that situation again where I remain voiceless. So seeing what's going on all over the world, because yet another black man was murdered. And Sandra Bland and all of these people that, it just goes on. And the ones we don't even know, the ones that are nameless, the gang initiations that the black community knows about, that where these folks come into black communities and their thing to get into a gang is to shoot somebody black, then immediately it's blamed black on black crime. So even the fact that, looking at a Facebook post, which I got to get off of, it drives me crazy, where these white men with guns are lined up facing black protesters. Now, had it been black people with guns facing white protesters, they would have been shot and killed, or all jailed or whatever, because you can get killed for having a BB gun. You can be killed for picking up a gun and looking at it. But here they have impunity to walk through neighborhoods, to come to these gatherings fully loaded with machine guns and everything else, and it's okay. Hey, So, yeah. So, I digress, but this young man, I always do, I'm a storyteller, what can I do? So this young man called me and he wanted to know what's going on. He's had wonderful dreams that are very prophetic, which I can't share because they're his dreams. However, he was unsure of how to react to some of the situations and where to place himself in these things. And so my guidance is, and how I was looking at this, I thought, those people that are out there all over the world who are demonstrating, and this one who's here with her mama and wish she was out there, you'll get your chance. The thing is that everybody has their position in their jobs. The ones that are out there, we support them, we put energy around them for their protection and their safety, that they're willing to stand up, and it's shining a light on where. No, but there are the K-pop groups that have, they emulate black culture, they copy the dances, they copy the rhythm, the dance, the whole thing, right? Making millions and millions of dollars. I don't see you. I don't hear you. You can't just take from a culture and want to be like them for the good things that you feel help you and benefit you. But now when you see what's happening to them, you're not stepping up. Your voice, I don't, stay on social media and I don't have a TV, but still, it would be big news if you all were standing out front saying, we support you, and tell all those millions and millions of fans of yours, enough. You like what we do? This is where we got it from. And we support these people, and we tell you, support these people, and change your racist attitudes and notions that, again, it's okay to fleece another culture for their benefit, and like what they're teaching you and what they're doing so that you can become enriched by these things. But now you see the degradation and the trouble that these folks are in, and your voice is not one of the loudest ones out there. Some of those millions you're making should be funneled back into these communities. The ones that live in your country should be treated better than they are, and you should be the loudest voice stepping up and saying, oh no, this is where we got this from, and we support these people 100% with our voice, with our presence, with our fandom, and with our money. And not just Asians, I'm talking about everybody on the planet that copies another cultural's Native American, using sage to smudge everything and knowing the benefits of something that, Creator gifted to these people in this tribe. And so it's time the check has come due. It's time to pay up, people. Love you.